Hey everyone, my name's Nardos.
Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Toddy.
So today we're talking about the tragedy that is happening now, that is ongoing with Jacob Blake, the 29-year-old Black man out in Kenosha, Wisconsin, who was shot 7 times in the back by law enforcement with his kids in the car. He's heading into his car, and there are protests happening across the country. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sort of like mad at it. It like the real feeling of burn it all down is sort of where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to, call for people to burn it all down because, then you get arrested for inciting violence or whatever. But it really is like burn it all down. He was shot in the back 7 times in front of his kids. Burn it all down. I mean, like, when we were sort of trying to put this Minisode together, like, people just didn't want to talk about it because, like, what can you say? But burn it all.
Right, like, it's emotionally taxing. Like, in my reaction to seeing it, I didn't see the video on purpose.
I wouldn't watch it.
And I've seen how people have been responding, and just the mere fact of knowing what it was, what happened, when it, like, just... it makes me mad. And, I kind of get that, that feeling too, like burn it all down, but it's just like, why, this is not normal. Like the fact that we keep seeing our Black brothers and sisters getting gunned down or choked or whatever like, this is not normal. This should not be normalized. This is not what we need to be seeing on screen at any point in time. And it impacts us. Like we're seeing it now going down with the NBA, right? And other sports teams, like, now we got bigger problems on our hands because this is, if we're not putting on a show for you on the court or on the stage, like we getting killed. Like this contrast should not be, like, it shouldn't exist. And that I'm trying not to curse because it kind of brings that out of you. Like it gets me so mad that we're here. And this is just what we see on camera. This is just what's recorded. Imagine what's not recorded. It just makes me even more mad. Like, how do you feel, Nardos?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, I purposefully was not watching the video, right? Like, it was all up and down my timeline, and I was just like scrolling through because, to your point, it's traumatizing at this point, right? Like, thankfully, Jacob is still alive. He's in critical condition. Yeah. He's paralyzed from the waist down right now, but it is exhausting. We are like angry, and this is continuously happening. And it's like, on one hand, because of, all of this being recorded, there are people who are like saying it's not common, like the naysayers of, oh, there's always, a reason why didn't he comply with the police? But then we have this interesting contrast of the protests happening, right? And specifically in Wisconsin, a young 17-year-old white boy, and I say boy because he's 17, was walking around with an AR-15 and killed 2 protesters and injured another one.
Right.
To keep the peace.
Like a weird dichotomy or like a weird juxtaposition of a boy walking around with an AR, like with the big gun. Like it's just that doesn't make sense to begin with. But the fact that the way that I heard what he did was that he shot somebody and he started running away. And then other protesters started running. Then not other protesters. He shot a protester. He ran away. Other protesters started to chase him, to apprehend him after murdering somebody. And he proceeds to shoot 2 more people. Mm-hmm. And this is all on camera. And it's not a video game. It's not Law and Order. It's not a movie, but this is really happening to people we would call fellow citizens and perpetrated by people we would call fellow citizens who have no right to do this. Like it's mind-boggling that we have I was about to say progressed, but this is where we've always been. We have not progressed to this point. We've always been here. And I think God bless it, God hate it, the fact that we have to relive the trauma via the video recordings of it, but now we have to deal with it because this is what's been in it. This is what's been channeling every racial interaction you ever had, every interaction with authority or law enforcement in this country. It's always been there, but now we're having to live with it on a more daily basis because we're at home during this pandemic and we don't have as much distractions. But now that we're focusing in and locking in on it, we're allowing it to hit us in a different way.
It is. And I'm so happy that people with influence are actually, they're not just hashtagging and putting stuff up on their Instagrams no more. They're actually like stopping. Like, we refuse to like put our lives on the show for you to kill us. Like that, I think that that's the most impactful for me at this time, because not until people start losing money is, once people start losing money, that's when the organizations and major institutions actually start stepping up. Because while they were like, they're probably like, oh, we don't want politics, in the middle of the game. Politics has been in the middle of it from the very beginning, right? Like, so you got power, now go use that power. Go use it to make sure that, Black and brown people aren't killed like by law enforcement. Like that's the only thing we're saying. Right, we talked about last time, and even to our episode about like, we're glad we don't want revenge. We just want equity. We just want you to treat us like fellow citizens that we are and who we will be and continue to be. We are also American. Because you don't like my color and you're threatened by it, that's pretty problematic. But I could go shoot a hoop for you, right?
Wow.
Right, like, or I could go scrub your floors, right? I can keep going, but it always makes me mad, and I'm like, it takes now this. The man is alive. He can probably, when he comes out of this, he'll probably be able to speak for himself. Now that he's not dead, now we're going to take a real stand. Like, I don't know. I don't know. What you think, Nardos?
The thing that came to me as you were saying that, and I like, it's a like a nervous laugh, right? Because it's like disbelief that this is still happening, to your point. And the other piece is, I think Shannon Sharp said it best earlier today, when you think about the difference between, this young white man that had this AR-15, or boy, I should say 15, walking around, and Jacob Blake, who, didn't have anything on him. He was just walking away.
And that's
is that law enforcement, part of the story of Kyle with the AR-15 is that he walked past a group of law enforcement with his AR-15. And to that point, Shannon Sharp said, it is a travesty that law enforcement is more threatened and has a visceral feeling towards his Black skin and our Black skin than this young 17-year-old white boy with an AR-15 walking around.
Well, you know where it's sort of rooted? I think, so I was just randomly reading about Haiti the other day, and how after the Haitian Revolution, where they took back their country from the white French people, right? During the first control of the country, they went through and they massacred a bunch of white people, right? And so to that end, I think that, and that happened like in this 18th century or whatever, that information traveled up to the United States, right? And so that white people have always been scared of, as Toddy put it, the revenge factor.
Yeah, that revolution.
And they've utilized law enforcement, police, to stamp down on it. That law and order, it's not about white people, because if it were, there would be a lot more white people in prison, right? It's about keeping us, black-skinned people, in order.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the piece that we often forget when we think about trauma is that people who have experienced this like firsthand and seen it firsthand, right? Like Jacob's Blake's kids were in the back. When you think of Philando Castile, his fiance's daughter was sitting in the back and watched this, right? When we think about Tamir Rice, this has happened to a 12-year-old boy, right? And so it's culminating with this idea of like, people are afraid of our revolution. It's also along the lines of, we constantly say that we want to protect children, right? But that is always independent of Black children, and we see that, and we see it with specific trauma with like push out and, you know, how the education system treats children. Then we also see it when instances like this traumatize children consistently, and then they don't have access to the mental health resources to get through that. So it's like this consistent cycle of trauma that we experience as a community, and it especially affects children who see this, who don't even understand it, right? So
you're spot on. You're spot on. It's the kids, right? This is this next generation coming up, seeing this, experiencing this. This is their reality. It's literally, oh well, when's the next one going to happen? That should never ever be the case. And you know, just as much as we have these feelings, I wonder how our peers are feeling. I wonder how not just our Black peers, but how are our white peers feeling?
Exactly.
Right? You know, what are they doing about it? How are they moving forward to make sure that we're truly seeing change?
Like, does it affect them emotionally? Does this like make you like? I mean, when I saw that, when I accidentally saw the video, I accidentally cried. I'm not accidentally. It made me like tear up. Like, I wonder, does this affect you? Does it hurt your heart? I wonder.
I talked to him. So, you know, and I think that's an important piece of this, right? Like, to your point, Toddy, I think on one hand, our experiences as Black people should not, you know, we should not carry the burden of teaching our white counterparts of what's happening. However, there are people, Black people, who choose to have those conversations with white people, and to sort of help and push along this idea that white people should also be talking about it and educating themselves on how and why this happens. So yeah, I agree. This should be a conversation that our white counterparts should be having. So,
and if you're not having the conversation, I challenge you to start having that conversation, because that's where real change starts to happen, when you start talking about it and you act on it, and you act in the direction of justice, of what's right.
Well, thank you for tuning in. Let us know what you think below. Uh, nothing to say, but really nothing to say.